and Renny show. And can you imagine? Oh, I'm gonna have to start it up here. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from the Winnipeg Free Press. I'm a little frazzled, like the Boston Bruins looked on this night. I forgot to hit live, and Ken did it in the background for me, but I already started the show. Holiday edition of the Kenny and Renny show, and can you imagine a better Christmas present, a better holiday present than that, what the Winnipeg Jets gave Winnipeg Jets fans on that night? Trying to find a diplomatic way to say this. The Winnipeg Jets kicked the Boston Bruins' ass tonight. This was an absolute slaughter. From the beginning of the game, drop of the puck, the Winnipeg Jets were there. They were ready to play. They were flying. There was pushback. Every time the Boston Bruins looked like they were going to try and make this a little bit more of an interesting game. As we talked about in some of our past shows, I believe we talked about it in the last show, the Winnipeg Jets and how they kind of just keep the pedal to the metal. They keep going. Love that style of game. I always go back to that game against Dallas where they got the 1-goal lead and sat on it. I absolutely admire the way a Winnipeg Jets team does what they do, in that they go out and it's not enough for them to win the game. They're going to play it the right way from the drop of the puck till the end. Like the whole idea of the full 60 minutes, and they talk about, there's no such thing as a complete 60-minute game. Boy, if it's not a complete 60-minute game, and I guess, if you get scored on, that counts as, a little bit of time that the other team owned. But the Winnipeg Jets are putting in, sometimes the other team just has their time on the ice. It doesn't mean you're putting your effort in. The Winnipeg Jets are putting together 60-minute efforts time and time and time and time again, over and over, replicating games. This game looked like the game against the Detroit Red Wings game. In fact, it was a little bit more, Laurent Brossoit had to do more to keep the Jets in that last game. This just one game after another. Against the LA Kings, that's a 5-2 win. By the way, the Boston Bruins, the second fewest goals allowed in the NHL this year. The LA Kings, the fewest goals allowed in the NHL this year. The Winnipeg Jets are the team with the third fewest goals allowed in the NHL. When they get up against these really, really great teams, it's not the Winnipeg Jets defense that's breaking. It's the other team's defense that are breaking. And the idea here behind the Boston Bruins, and yeah, they're a team that is supposed to look a lot like the Winnipeg Jets. They're supposed to have the superior first line. They're the ones with David Pastrnak, who is in competition to be one of the leading point producers, a potential Art Ross Trophy candidate. This is a team with Brad Marchand on it. Mark Scheifele was compared, his line was compared to that line earlier in the season. Mark was blown away that he would be compared to them. He shouldn't be blown away after tonight. If you're taking a look at which of these two top lines was the superior top line, it was not even close on this night. And I was talking with Pat Rathwell about this earlier on when the game was on. We should be having an ongoing check-in. Every single show, we should be checking in on how the Winnipeg Jets top line did against the other team's top line, because we talked about this before. I got thinking about it when Nathan MacKinnon was coming to town. Yes, Nathan MacKinnon is a talent. He's a superstar. He's one of the best players in the league. But right now, if you're imagining a playoff series, which team are you thinking or which line are you thinking is going to be more capable of winning a playoff series for their team? Nathan MacKinnon's line or Mark Scheifele's line? David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand's line or Mark Scheifele's line? Now, I'm not saying the Stanley Cup, and I've got too many people inboxing me this and talking about this. Stanley Cup doesn't get handed out in December. Yes, the Jets are absolutely on fire right now. Yes, the Jets are taking really good teams and snapping them over their knee right now. And yes, a whole bunch of people across the league are finally looking towards the Winnipeg Jets and saying, okay, this could be a really great team. This is, I think it was Biz said something along the lines of the Jets could win the Stanley Cup. Well, I agree with that in the idea that the Winnipeg Jets now have to be considered at this stage of the season. The Winnipeg Jets are a Stanley Cup contender. You cannot take that away from them. Stamp it down, write it in ink, etch it in stone. The Winnipeg Jets, the way they play right now, would be hard to handle for any team in the NHL. You take the Dallas Stars, you take the New York Rangers, you take the Los Angeles Kings, you take the Vegas Golden Knights, so on and so forth. The Vancouver Canucks, let's throw them in there because right now they're first in the NHL right now. Not one of those teams would look at the Winnipeg Jets and not say, wow, they are going to be an extremely tough out. But to get to the point of this is maybe, despite all the things I liked seeing, this is maybe what I liked seeing most in that Jets game. You didn't get to see it unless you watched the post-game scrum. Josh Morrissey comes out after a game in which they, like I said, snapped the Boston Bruins over their knee. Josh Morrissey could have said something about it. He could have done whatever. Hey, listen, the Boston Bruins had beat the Jets 6 straight times. The last time the Jets had beat them was back in 2019, right? There was every reason to gloat. There was every reason to say we've arrived. Josh Morrissey said, I don't believe in measuring stick games in December. Basically, Josh Morrissey said, I don't believe that's the best the Boston Bruins would have had or could have going forward. And that's right. But here's what I love about that. The way that he handles that and the way that he's just basically saying, this is our team. We worry about ourselves. We focus on our business. We dig in. I implore you to think of some of the years past that we've had conversations on this show and some of the things that we talked about on this show. I remember a time when the Winnipeg Jets handled these situations by saying, we know we're good. I remember when they'd talk in certain situations, and they'd come out and they'd be like, oh, we're on the verge of a dynasty and all of this kind of stuff. The old Winnipeg Jets used to handle situations like this with... I don't want to say it, but they used to be arrogant. They used to handle these situations with arrogance. They would do well and they would dust their shoulders off and they would be arrogant about the situation. And instead, now Josh Morrissey comes out. He handles it with humility. He honors the team that they just beat. He says he knows that they are coming. You know, the next time they see them, they're going to be coming and it's a different situation. To me, that's a Winnipeg Jets team that gets it more than any other Winnipeg Jets team we may have seen. And that includes the 2018 team. That includes that team. I think this Winnipeg Jets team is now better mentally prepared to handle the grind of this. They know what winning is about. And I go back to this and I say it time and time again. And everyone should kind of think back and wonder about how why Rick Bowness said this. But the end of the year last year, and I've said it to Ken, the end of the year last year, Rick Bowness lost it on his team. And why? Because he looked at what the Winnipeg Jets were and thought they could be this. What you are seeing right now, Rick Bowness knew the Winnipeg Jets could be this. And they chose a different path last year rather than put in the effort we're seeing. To me, Josh Morrissey's words, a leader on this team, we never hear any different from anybody else. Ken spoke with Nino Niederreiter away from the rest of the media. I'm confident, I'm 100% confident he was saying similar things. This team is handling the situation it's in. They are handling their success better than they've ever handled success before. And it's one of the reasons why, if you weren't a believer before, and there's a lot of people around the league who maybe wouldn't have been, you should be a believer in the Winnipeg Jets right now. That's my take on the whole thing. Time to bring in the man with the best music in the business for his take. Of course, that's Kenny. And hey, here comes Kenny. Ken, my friend, I think the only way that the Winnipeg Jets could have possibly looked good tonight or better tonight is if Frank and the boys at Vittorio Rossi had them skating around on the ice on suits. Not to take anything away from those Heritage Blues. I love those jerseys, the size of the logo, all that kind of stuff. But you're looking good again. You're rocking the off-colored. You stay away from the white because you got pizzazz, my friend. You've got pizzazz, and you show it in the way that you dress at all times. and you know the way that you dress is an extension of Frankie and the boys down for Torrio Rossi. So you at home, you know what to do. Head on down to Corden Avenue, go on to the Torrio Rossi. Tell them you want, a sharp colored, darker shirt behind that great suit that they're going to set you up with there. And you're say, give me the Ken Weeb treatment is what you can tell them. Frankie and the boys will know what you're talking about because they know everything about the business. Go check them out, everybody. Ken, what did that look like to you tonight?
Yeah, impressive. It's interesting. I mean, outside of a failed clearing attempt and a shot that was either redirected or screened, it's, Rick Bowness always says it's hard to play the perfect game. I mean, outside of that goal allowed late, this was basically a perfect effort for the Jets. Their four lines were rolling. Their top guns were all over the place. Josh Morrissey leading the charge. Mark Scheifele playing a two-way game. Fourth line buzzing. 2 power play goals from the second unit and a clean sheet 2 for 2 with the penalty kill, like against one of the, and not against a doormat, against one of the best teams in the NHL. Now, that was not the Bruins' best game, even though it was probably the Jets' best effort of the year. But this is a good hockey team, one of the best defensive teams in the league, one of the stingiest teams, legit team that had 5 regulation losses coming into the contest, and the Jets not only made them look pedestrian, they, as you said, they kicked their ass. And that was something that I don't think a lot of people saw coming into the game. Now, it's one game, sure. But I'm interested for your thoughts on this, Sean. I don't even need to stay at the buffet long. And yes, you're right. Nito Niederreiter basically told me and Carter Brooks that, yeah, I mean, it was a statement game for them in a lot of ways because they want to play well and keep playing well against great teams. But they certainly weren't... To borrow a quote from Claude Noel back in the day, they certainly were not, separating their own shoulders by patting themselves up on the back here.
Yes.
They're going into these games. We're calling them statement games or measuring stick games. The Jets are going into these games expecting to win. And that, I think, is an important step forward for these guys. And I agree with you. One of the most important things for the Jets, Sean, this year, they're handling success. They're not, getting fat on their press clippings and, kind of fading into the background when they get their first taste of success. They've had an incredibly sustained run of success, 8-1-1 in this last stretch of games. And they had 2 victories over the Colorado Avalanche, 1 over the LA Kings, and 1 over the Boston Bruins. They also have a win over the Florida Panthers in that stretch as well, Sean. So to me, the Jets are kind of changing the narrative to what you were suggesting to Rick Bowness, even though he wasn't having any of it. When people like John Cooper, who have won 2 Stanley Cups, start to throw comparisons to teams like the Boston Bruins, when the Boston Bruins, I think at that time, had 3 regulation losses, teams are starting to take notice. Opposition coaches are taking notice. Jim Montgomery is quite familiar with Rick Bowness. He was very complimentary towards the Jets this morning at the morning skate, and I'm sure he was even more complimentary after the game was over. Brad Marchand went out of his way to say how well the Jets had been playing of late in the morning skate as well, and this was just a flat-out dominant performance. And I'm curious for your take here. I'm not going to spend too much time at the buffet because we've got lots to get into. I'm curious for your take on this change of pace. Like, Rick must know that we remember. That's why I asked him. 2 weeks ago, he basically flat out said, if the Jets want to be an elite team, they have to start beating elite teams. And that's exactly what they've done in this 3-week stretch of time. So I'm curious that he's sort of shifting the narrative a little bit, but not in a bad way, but I think it's certainly interesting. But, again, the Jets are... thanks for Bick Ronas for showing up again.
No, it's good. It's good.
I know it's accurate,
he keeps us grounded. We'd float off into space if it wasn't for Bick Ronas.
Well,
he has a necessary purpose. As he says, Jets had about the same number of points 2 years ago at Christmas, then collapsed. Jets had about the same number of points last year at Christmas, then collapsed. But this team is different. He puts in quotations. Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion. We've talked at length, Ken, on this show about why we believe this team is different. We don't need to get into it again.
Well, they have to show it. We agree that they have to show it, but they've shown it.
At this point, the results will speak for themselves.
I would say, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, you had a question for me?
Yeah, I mean, why do you think Rick has sort of changed his tune regarding the needing to be elite, beat elite teams to be elite? Now, when they've done that, he's like, well, we only measure against ourselves. I think that was. Do you think that's attacked by him, or do you think it's definitely intentional?
So
why is it though?
Okay, Ken, I've talked about this moment, and I don't know if I've done it on the podcast. You and I have talked about it behind the scenes. So I'm going to bring it into I remember in 2018 when the Winnipeg Jets beat in Game 7 the Nashville Predators, and I remember walking into their room afterwards. And I remember the celebratory feel that was happening in that room. Now, by all means, I may have mistaken it just for a team that had won a challenging round against a team, but
President's Trophy winning team.
President's Trophy winning team. But I don't know about you, Ken, but I left that room, and you can ask my cameraman. I turned to my cameraman and I said to him, they think they've won the Stanley Cup. I remember it at that time. That was the sense I got in that room. There was like, and someone said it earlier on there. They'd said they called it swagger, right? I'll take quiet confidence over swagger any day of the week. And to me, there was like miles of swagger in that room. And they carried that swagger into the first game. And I just think, like, I call it honoring your opponent, right? Like,
sure.
The Winnipeg Jets honor their opponents by saying to them they are still really good teams, like with the Boston Bruins afterwards. They said, this is a great team. They're not getting to the stage where they're like, yeah, we're good, we can beat anybody. They're like, honor those guys because they can beat us, and we need to be on top of our game in order to beat those guys. And that's what Rick Bowness is saying, because I think Rick Bowness understands with this team, and I don't think he got it until last year, and he was surprised by it. I think there's a feeling of the Winnipeg Jets, and it's you know what, Ken? It's maybe why time and again on this show I say I hate the "Are we elite?" conversation, because every time, and this has happened, the Jets are back into first place. This will be the 9th time in the last 2 years that the Jets have landed in first place in the Central Division. Every time they do, we've got people waving the flag. We're winning the Stanley Cup. We're elite. All this kind of stuff. To me, I don't know if that's just the fan base and how that's how the fan base has always been, or if the Jets took their cues from the old Winnipeg Jets. But I think the Jets had a tendency to feel they had arrived at the destination before the destination was in sight. We're good. We know we're good. We've got this. Right? Like there was always this sense of we've achieved it and we're there, when they really hadn't been to the place that they needed to go in the first place. I think that Top Line Media says Sean Shipe was the best center on the ice head-to-head versus Mac and Kopitar recently enough. So why are you derailing me with a comment that has nothing to do with what I'm saying, Ken? Why would you get me to read that? What is happening here? Hey, I like the comment, but I'm trying to talk about something else, and you're derailing me from it.
We need a holiday break, buddy. We need a holiday break.
The Winnipeg Jets last year in January were first in the Central, and there was this feeling, I remember.
First in the conference.
First in the conference. And I remember, go back and watch the shows. The number of games that they were playing around the 1 to 10 of January, 1st of January to the 10th of January. Go back and watch the shows. I was saying the style of play they were playing was not sustainable. This is the kind of hockey you play before the fall. Rick Bowness, I think, learned from last year with this team that they're a team that gets to a spot and they get to the top of the division or wherever, and then they sit back and they feel like they've achieved it. That's why he always would say over and over again, you know, we need to earn staying there. I think what he's done now, he's trying to take the other team out of the process, and he's saying we're just going to focus on our process. If we keep playing like this, if we keep getting that effort, if we're not paying attention to what other teams are doing, if we're not paying attention to what time it is in the game, Ken, because you see so many teams get up in a game like tonight and they sag, and the Winnipeg Jets keep the throttle on right until the end of the game because the coaching staff has them believing that the process is important above all. I'm supposed to be in this spot. I'm supposed to pressure this puck in this spot. There's a way we are expected to play that game, and we're expected to play it the same way, whether we are down 7-0 or we're up 5-1. And that's why you're getting the results you're getting. And that's why you've got Rick Bowness responding the way you're talking about. He's not talking about other teams. You can't control them. He knows that they need to be intrinsically motivated. And boy, oh boy, is this team ever intrinsically motivated right now.
I was going to say, do you think part of the reason why he's changed his tune is that he needed his team to show him? That's why he brought up we need to beat teams to beat some elite teams to be in that conversation. Now that they have, he's sort of backed off a little bit.
Well, I think what it was is they needed to tick certain boxes. And
it's 100% accurate
on this show.
Yeah.
At one point, the Jets were like the upper third of the league, but they hadn't beat many of the. At one point, I looked at the standings. I think it was against Tampa Bay, and the only team that they'd beat above them in the standings was the Florida Panthers.
Florida, yep.
And it was a game in which they almost blew the lead, and Florida was a post away from tying that game. So I just think he was saying, with all honesty, like, guys, let's not get too carried away. You're doing well, but you haven't beat any of these guys above you. Now they're going out, and it's just another box that this team has ticked at this stage. I just feel like this team is focused. It knows what its challenges are. It fights like hell to meet those challenges, and that's what we're seeing in a game like tonight.
Yeah, no, and it's impressive. I mean, like you can't say in this 8-1-1 stretch, Sean, the regulation losses to the San Jose Sharks, right, and the extra time losses to the Montreal Canadiens. With all due respect to those teams, they have handled the upper echelon teams now, and that's an impressive thing to see, and that's something they hadn't done as much early in the year. They lost twice to Vegas, they lost twice to Dallas, but now they've been able to rise to the challenge against some of those other teams. And now some of those other teams are failing to rise to the challenge against Winnipeg. I mean, they beat Colorado twice now too. I mean, it's an impressive showing here by the Jets right now. There's no doubt about it. And, their game is complete. Their 5-on-5 game is among the best in the league. Jim Montgomery mentioned it today. Lowest goals against since November 1st. So,
right.
Like, people are, when you're the team that leads the East, you're paying attention when that's the case. And Jim Montgomery knows a thing or two about guiding the stingiest defensive team in the NHL. And it's been impressive. And again, they've been racking up 4 or 5 goals a night since Kyle Connor went out. I mean, the first couple games, we were curious where the goals were going to come from. And now they're almost scoring at will, but without cheating for offense, which that's the reason, Bick Ronis, why this is more sustainable than what we had seen in the past.
I'm going to go back to, I want to talk about that Sharks and Canadiens game, and I'm going to tie it to the pristine wake-up call. And the pristine wake-up call, I see it, I'm not going anywhere where everyone thinks I'm going. The pristine wake-up call for me tonight was the Boston Bruins and all the hope plays they tried off the rush. They were constantly coming in. There didn't look to be any kind of chance in front of the net. The Jets had the play squared off, and they were just lobbing pucks into the front of the net, hoping a guy could get a redirect or something like that. They were hope plays, time and time again, hope plays. And this is what the Jets do, and a lot of times this is what those games end up looking like, is when you know that the other team is trying hope play after hope play, you beat them. And the thing I know about that is I know that the Winnipeg Jets in those very same situations don't throw the puck to the front of the net. Mark Scheifele doesn't waste a pass unless he thinks there's a high chance that it's going to end up on the other player's stick. So what does he do? He curls back against the boards. He rags it around. They work the boards. Yeah, they're not trying to get it all done in one shot. And I thought the Boston Bruins side came in and were not prepared to play a grind game to the degree that the Winnipeg Jets were ready to play. They can play it. They just wanted to play a little bit more wide open. This was a little bit of the Jets teams in the past where you're like, what's gone wrong with them? Where the Jets just wanted to stop paying the price and they just wanted to play pond hockey. They wanted snake charmer offense and stuff like that. You saw that tonight. And I thought that deserved a pristine roofing wake-up call for the Boston Bruins tonight. And you know what that means. Time to give North End Rick the pristine roofing wake-up call at 1-204-981-6289. Any of your roofing or siding or exterior needs, he can come down and tell you exactly how to handle the situation, and he'd do that by getting the boys at Pristine Roofing down. Give them a call at 1-204-237-7663. I don't think
one quick one. Rick was giving me the pristine wake-up call this evening with a little bit of a shot on the old Twitter machine saying the top line is playing so well, Ken is going to suggest breaking them up.
Well, I mean, it's a deserved comment, no doubt. Going back to the Canadiens and Sharks, I don't think that game's a fluke. Either of those games are a fluke. And I don't think they are off nights for the Winnipeg Jets. I think what you're seeing there in those games was you didn't see Montreal throwing pucks away and giving over possession. What Montreal looked like in that game and what the San Jose Sharks looked like in that game is both those teams are fast, and they decided to use that speed to do what the Jets do to other teams, to back check, to put on back pressure, to not give the Jets the space that they are earning with their speed and with their grind. But more so, when they got the puck, they were moving the puck fast down ice and forcing the Jets to chase them back. And if the play wasn't there, they kept the Jets chasing them. When the Jets only have to chase back and get a team by, doing a little bit of back pressure, and you're going to try a hope play and turn it over and they go right back up the ice, the Jets will play that game all night. I truly believe the way that the Montreal Canadiens, and I'm not trying to give anyone a recipe, but if I'm watching game tape and I'm a coach coming in to play the Winnipeg Jets, I'm taking a look at this Boston Bruins game, and I'm taking a look at the Canadiens game, and I'm saying one of these two teams played the Jets the right way, and it wasn't the Boston Bruins. I know people want to hear that the Boston Bruins were at their absolute best, and the Jets just overwhelmed them anyways, and I know people want to hear me say that when they played the Canadiens, that they were off and the Canadiens came in and the Jets didn't have their best game. There's something to the way that those games were played. The Jets, they have a hard time handling other teams' speed when they have speed thrown back at them and when they've got that grind involved. There was no grind to me in the Boston Bruins game here tonight. We know they're capable of it. It was not there tonight, and that's why I just wanted to say I don't throw out those two losses as flukes, and I know people also want to do that as well because they want to say basically this team is undefeated for however many games it is, 13 games or whatever. People want to believe that. The reason I pointed out is not to poke a hole in the Jets system. The reason I pointed out is because I think the Jets need to be prepared to play that style of game when a team brings it, because if coaches are paying attention, I think they'll look at that and see that there's something in those game plans that the San Jose Sharks and the Montreal Canadiens played that will be more challenging to the Jets than the kind of game a team like the Boston Bruins brought to their doorstep tonight.
Yeah, no doubt. And yeah, it's not that the Jets were bad in either one of those games. They just, in some ways, they weren't dictating the play against the Sharks, and their special teams, I think, let them down. Montreal,
no,
right?
No doubt.
That was the other part, right?
No
doubt. Their structure was still fine in that game. It just was a matter of not quite sharp enough with the things that mattered, some of the little details. So it's impressive. The four-line hockey team, all three D pairings are rolling along, and their goaltending has been just spectacular. We've been banging on this drum for quite some time. 22 consecutive games of allowing 3 goals or fewer, and the majority of those are 2 or fewer. I think there's only, I want to say, I'd have to double check, I don't want to speculate, but it was something like 3 games out of the 23 were 3 goals allowed. So that is a pretty impressive run. That's over a quarter of a season. To me, that's incredibly impressive, and that, especially for a team that had previously not been committed to playing defensive hockey at 5-on-5. There's no way around it. It's a fact. So this team has really dug in on the details, and it's becoming second nature, Sean. And that's the thing that is impressive. The fact that they are playing that type of style and are committed to it, and they're not cheating, and they're not, if there's a chance, there's a time where you maybe don't feel like back checking, well, then you put your head down and get back into the zone. So yeah. Those are things that they're stacking with the foundation. And yeah, I mean, we just quickly, chat room, absolutely awesome. It was over 600 a little while ago, yes. Just kind of floating around there right now. Incredible turnout for a beautiful Friday night here. They're back to 600. Well done.
There.
Yeah, I mean, and that's, Sean, let's the top line. Just, I mean, we're kind of running out of superlatives for them, which is crazy considering they've only played 6 games together. But man, they continue to put on an absolute clinic right now, the way they're playing as a 3-man unit out there.
Oh, there's something else. You know what? I am going to it's hard to talk more about what they've been doing. Like, what can we say that hasn't been said? It's back to one of these things where in the journalism industry, people, sometimes covering a little bit of a tire fire team is actually easier to do because the storylines keep changing, or a team that's up and down. Like if you're covering the Montreal Canadiens right now, they can go and they can knock off the New York Islanders and the Winnipeg Jets on 2 nights, and then they can go out and they can blow it against lower level teams. Lots to talk about here. It's like I said off the top of the show, this 5-1 win looks a lot like the 5-2 win from the other night, right? It looks a lot like the 5-2 win against the LA Kings a little bit earlier on. Like the Jets are replicating games time and time and time again because they're doing the same things over and over and over again, getting the same effort night in and night out. And it goes back to that first line. Like they've looked the same since the beginning. I will say this, Ken. The goal that Gabe Vilardi scores, that is insanely elite, quick hands and hand-eye coordination to get that puck the way that he does and pop it back on net that quickly. Like, you know what? If it's everyone else if this is a beer league hockey game, that puck goes off the pads, your stick never comes anywhere near it, and it's off into the sideboards, right? Because that's where the puck is getting kicked to, right? If it's any other players on the ice, maybe David Pastrnak has a shot at that. Potentially Mark Scheifele, maybe Marchand. We're starting to run out of people who have the capability, the fast twitch muscle fiber to grab that puck. The way he does that, he's just on an insane streak of not getting it wrong in front of the net when he gets an opportunity. I mean, that's about the only thing I can say different, is that it just builds more on his ability. Like this is that guy who I'm trying to think of the movie, but it's like someone like, there's a fake video of Evan Longoria catching a foul ball, saving a reporter who's doing like a sideline interview. It's a fake video, but he's sitting there and he kind of turns and goes like that and snaps it. Like that's the level of fast twitch muscle fiber reaction we're seeing from Gabe Vilardi in front of the net right now. Like he cannot miss, and it's astounding. It's astounding at this stage. That's what I'll say.
Sean, I actually thought he batted it out of in real time. I thought he actually batted it out of the air, but it landed, but then he batted, like the puck had not landed flat for a split second before he banged it in. Like it was absolutely incredible. Like, and the play itself, like to be able to follow the ping ponging that was happening there with the Plinko, Ehlers' pass bounced off at least one shin pad, if not two, maybe a skate. And all of a sudden it was laying there. And before you could find it, if you're a Bruins defenseman, Vilardi was first to it. He found it. Wow. His ability to bat pucks out of the air and stick handle. We were both talking to Alex Faust today, who was around Gabriel Vilardi in LA when he was the play-by-play guy there. He said it. His ability to stick handle in a phone booth. Like we're seeing this in real time. Like the fact that he missed 18 games, we could see the potential early, but what we're seeing now is just absolute domination from a guy who couldn't wait for an opportunity to be a first-line player, and he's absolutely playing at a first-line level. It's absolutely ridiculous. 5-game goal-scoring streak. He's got 7 goals and 15 points in 14 games this year. And the only negative is that he missed those 18 games, because if he hadn't, Sean, we'd be talking about a guy who's probably on a 40-plus goal pace. And, considering the pace Kyle Connor was on, wow, like that's just an impressive role. And again, we can't overlook Scheifele. Scheifele had another great game today, 2 helpers. Absolutely awesome week for Mark Scheifele. I know we went pretty heavy into the Mark Scheifele show the last game, but I mean, as we hit the 34-minute mark here, Sean, Josh Morrissey's first period was his best period of the season, and he's had a lot of great periods. He was all over the ice. He was jumping up in the rush. He had chances. He had a goal that was disallowed because he, kicking motion with his right leg after Vladislav Nemestikov deked out everybody in the building, went around Jeremy Swayman and, put the puck in a place where Josh couldn't find it with his stick. And the beauty of Josh is a pretty level-headed guy, as we know. I absolutely love the celebration where he does the referee point when he scores the goal the second time. This one's going to count. You're not going to be able to take this one off the board. He points and then goes into the celebration. I mean, that was absolutely a great emotion. That was kind of a very similar outburst as to the LFG that you saw against the St. Louis Blues last year.
Yes.
Absolutely loved the period Josh had. Another great effort. Now what is he up to? He's up to 6 goals, and that's 29 points. I think we got him down for in 32 games. Just absolute clinical. That pairing with Dylan DeMello, very solid again tonight. Neil Pionk, another great effort with Brennan Dillon. And, Nate Schmidt, we talked to Nate Schmidt earlier in the week, Sean, and, he's been kind of down on his luck in terms of puck luck this year, had been stuck on 1 assist for quite some time. He makes an outstanding pass to Nino Niederreiter in front for that first power play goal. And that's something that, there's a huge sigh of relief for a veteran who prides himself on his offensive game. He's always been an offensive guy. Nate was joking earlier this week, Sean, that he came into the league and people thought he couldn't check, and now he's kind of transformed into more of a defensive defenseman. But now his point totals are down, and he had, as positive a guy as he is, it's frustrating when an offensive guy isn't able to perform and produce. But he was able to keep playing well in this stretch, and now he gets on the board. I'm thinking.
Ken,
did I lose you, or did you lose me?
Am I through? I'm not sure right now. I couldn't hear what you're saying. You were saying at the end of there to close it. I think we're both back though, which
Nate
is a good
Schmidt,
thing.
Just feeling better about things. Sorry about that.
Yeah, well, we can go. I want to get into Nate Schmidt because there's a good conversation to be had there. First, I just wanted to, I want to talk about Cambrian and the teamwork that they do quickly. And I'm going to, I'm going to give the shout out. The top line, we know about their great teamwork. I'm going to give a shout out to the teamwork that you and I had when on this show. We talked about in the live event on December 10th when Kyle Connor went down, that we did not expect the loss of Kyle Connor to take this team out of things. Talk about bringing out receipts, Ken.
Yes,
we saw a team that played a structure that could survive something like that. The Jets are literally thriving without him in this situation. And again, like it comes to the system that they play. But Ken, that was great teamwork by you and I. And of course, we wanted to give a quick shout out to the team at Cambrian Credit Union, from answering members' calls in less than 1 minute to having all their advisors available by video from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. It makes it so easy to be a Cambrian member. It is obvious that the whole team at Cambrian cares about giving you great service. Okay, let's get into Nate. Okay, sorry. Before we do go, I just had to bring this up, and Rick Bowness talking about the first line, because this is where I'm at with the first line, Ken. Mark Scheifele is not going to lead the league in scoring. And Gabe Velarde, it's too late for him to. Nick Ehlers, a little bit of a slow start. That's not going to happen. These guys are not going to win the Art Ross trophy. And a lot of this is just the way it goes. A lot of people around the league are going to take a look, and that's how they judge who the best players in the league are. I take a look at this, and I'd said this before you hopped on, Ken. I know the chat room has heard me say this, but I think we just need to clock game after game after game. How often is the Winnipeg Jets line the best line on the ice?
Right.
Sometimes that's the third line. But like David Pastrnak and Brad Marchand are always in the conversation as one of the best lines in the NHL. They didn't look anywhere near the same. Like I hope this doesn't sound like hyperbole. They did not look in the same league as the Jets first line. And yes, I don't think it was the best game they've ever played before. And yes, we know that they can do more. But holy smokes, Ken. Like at this stage, and that's how I put it. I said to Rick Bowness, I don't need you to rank it. I don't need you to do anything, but give me an idea of where you think this, they rank in the league, your top line. And his response was he just didn't want to go there. He didn't want to do ranking. He didn't want to talk about other players. And so I said, okay, well, let's do it simply like this. Is there a line in this league that if you were playing that team, you didn't think Mark Scheifele's line could hang with? And he said, No, absolutely not. And I agree with him. I think great lines are. I'm interested in seeing what this line looks like against Connor McDavid next time they come rolling into town, because I just think this line gets better and better and better. Scheifele's playing more and more of a complete game, and I could see a game like that in which they really just don't allow Connor McDavid to handle the puck that often, because they're going to take it, scrum it around the zone, make the passes that we're seeing them make, and win the night.
Yeah, I mean, they've been excellent. And the beauty of that is that we're going to be watching them for a long time. And we know that Rick doesn't want to compare them. That's fine. That's not his job. It's our job to make assessments about how that line is matching up. I think it was important. We talked with Rick Bowness about this morning at the morning skates availability. The fact that the Jets are able to play that top line head-to-head against guys like McKinnon and some of the other lines is impressive. You don't just always have to lean on Adam Lowry's line to do the shutdown work. They're playing Scheifele head-to-head with the opponent's best line, and it's something that kind of, we've talked about this for years. Mark wanted to be going out against, like, this was back to the early days. He wanted to be going out head-to-head. This is going to sound, we're jumping seriously into the hot tub time machine. I can remember, Sean, and so do you, when the Jets lost to the Anaheim Ducks in that first round matchup, Mark Scheifele got taken to the cleaners by Ryan Kesler, buddy. Yeah. Absolutely taken to the cleaners. It was his first playoff appearance. Kesler got under his skin. He didn't really produce a lot of offense in terms of Scheifele. Wasn't producing much against Kesler. When you're going up against Kesler and Getzlaf, that's a tough opponent. But it was always going to help him pay off down the road. And now we're seeing him go head-to-head with Nathan McKinnon, and he's not just trying to hang on for dear life. He's going out there and imposing his will on the game, and that's a massive development for the Winnipeg Jets. And I think that, again, I understand the pieces have changed, but I can remember talking with Kyle Connor about this. Those guys want to be in the conversation, and previously they weren't playing strong enough defensively to be in the conversation. But now they are in the conversation of being one of the most productive. Again, it is an incredibly small sample size. No one's ignoring that or disputing that. It's 6 games. 6 games. 5 of them they've had points in. The one they didn't have anything. But the way that they're playing and dictating their pace and will in the games is what has been impressive. And it's why we're going to be talking about them for a long time in terms of the comparisons. We're going to do the comparisons because that's part of the fun of the job, right?
Yes, no doubt. Ken, sorry to switch gears so quickly, but there have never been louder or more numerous calls for the headband.
It's been a while, yeah.
Right now.
Feels like we're in Nashville again, buddy.
That's what happens when you got 600 people in the chat. So let's do it. Let's make it a Sean's Headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. I love that song. I love it. It's so good. It is so good. All Tristan's music just absolutely rocks. You cannot get sick of it. You can't get sick of that music. You can't be like you would think this many years into it, you'd be like, oh my God, like after hearing your song every show for how many years, I never get sick of it. Every time I play your song, I'm rocking in behind the scenes here. It's just
good.
Absolutely great. We want to go and we want to switch to Nate Schmidt. I have to tell a quick story before that, Ken. Great stuff. Adam Lowry, you may have heard on the broadcast the other night against the Detroit Red Wings, Derek Lalonde, just out of the blue. I didn't ask him about it. He just volunteered to me that he thought Adam Lowry was the best checking center in the NHL. And I've got this rule in life. If someone ever says something nice to me about someone else, if I see that person, I'm telling them that person said something nice about them. I did the same thing when Jordan Staal was in town, and I compared the two of them. Jordan Staal said that it was an honor to be compared to Lowry. I told Lowry that, and Lowry was like, my goodness, I've been trying to be that guy my entire career. It meant the world to him. So I stopped him today quickly they were trying to rush into a meeting, and I just said to him quickly, just on that same thing I told you about, when people say nice things about you, I got to pass it on. Derek Lalonde, the coach of the Red Wings, said he thought you were the best shutdown guy in the league. And he said, Sean, I heard it because after you said it on the broadcast, my mom called me. So I just thought it was a fun moment. You never know how much these guys are checking in, but Adam Lowry's mom was at home, heard it, called Adam after the game, and was like, just so you know, Derek Lalonde thinks you're the best shutdown center in the game.
Outstanding. Great
stuff. And boy, oh boy, he's earning it. To Nate Schmidt. You've talked a little bit about how great he was tonight. The chat room's talking about that move that he made. I just thought it was great. He's been playing phenomenal defensive hockey lately. He pointed out the other day when I asked him a question how you'd pointed out the metrics that suggest that he and Dylan Sandberg are maybe the #1 line defensively in the NHL when it comes to expected goals against. So he just seems to be doing everything right. It feels a little bit to me like the Nate Schmidt revenge tour, in that he's coming back and he's firing on all cylinders. I ask you this, Ken. Like, it seemed like it was going to be obvious what happened when Ville Heinola came back into the lineup, but Ville Heinola coming back in, Rick Bowness made certain the other day when someone talked about Ville that Ville would have been in this Jets lineup. He would have been one of their top 6 defensemen, which to me suggests that that's what's going to happen when he gets back. But boy, oh boy, Ken, and to me, I think it's actually pretty obvious that it will end up being Nate Schmidt. But I talk about Vladdy Nemesnikov and how Vladdy Nemesnikov is constantly getting, I talked about it with him today, constantly getting moved out of places where he's more than earned the opportunity to stay there. Nate Schmidt has more than earned the opportunity to stay in the lineup. But how tough is the job of the Winnipeg Jets when you're going to have to pull someone out of the lineup that does not deserve to be pulled out of the lineup?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, first and foremost, I think that was pretty... Rick is a subtle guy at times. That was I'm not saying he was putting Nate Schmidt on notice, but I don't think it was an accident, right? I mean, this was message sending, but Nate knows that he's the #6 guy, and Nate knows that Ville Heinola is working his way back. But I'm here to tell you right now, I've been saying this for weeks and probably for months, and I like the way Ville Heinola plays the game. I've wanted to see more of him over the years, but he's going to need to show that he can get back to that level that he was playing at. Playing at that level in the preseason is not the same as playing that level at game 40 or game 45 or game 65 or game 82 or the first game of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So I'm not saying he can't get there, but Nate Schmidt is not going to just say, by the way, Ville, come on down and take my spot. That's not the way it works in the NHL. If he can beat him out, that means it's probably, good on him for being able to do so. But Nate Schmidt has been around the NHL for a long time, Sean. And right now, the only beef that people have with Nate Schmidt is his salary on the third pairing. It's got nothing to do with his level of play. Could he produce a little bit more offense? Absolutely. But he's playing a sound defensive game. And right now, he's showing off his veteran moxie and doing everything that he can to stay in the lineup. I've said this numerous times with Hustler on Winnipeg Sports Talk, and I've said it on CJOB. I've said it on a lot of platforms, including here. Ville Heinola is going to need to spend multiple weeks with the Manitoba Moose, not for punishment, not because he's waivers exempt, because he needs the time to get back up to speed after a serious injury. What he went through is difficult to go through at any time. Summer, winter, any time. So the fact that he's going to try to come back in game between 42 and 50, you're playing catch up. And I'm not saying he can't do it, but this is a guy who is looking to establish himself as an NHL player. Nate Schmidt's been an NHL player for a long time. Nate Schmidt went through exactly what Ville Heinola has gone through in his career as a member of the Washington Capitals. He kept getting pushed aside, Sean, by a trade deadline acquisition, but he didn't fold. He didn't just say, go ahead and steal my spot. He got better from those opportunities, and what he did was earn that opportunity ultimately when he went to the Vegas Golden Knights. So the competition is definitely on, but Nate Schmidt is not giving up easily in terms of just saying, here, I know you played well in October, Villy. Why don't you take the spot from me? Like, that's just not the way it's going to be. He's going to force the Jets to knock him out of the lineup. And right now, he doesn't want to come out of the lineup, and he doesn't deserve to come out of the lineup, like you said.
I think it's a tall order for Ville Heinola, right?
I
think what happens is because he was named, because there's always been such a white hot spotlight on Ville Heinola, and because there's fans out there like T. Will that make these ridiculous suggestions about putting him in the lineup when he shouldn't be in the lineup. It's unfair, really, to have fans like T. Will put that kind of pressure on a guy like Ville Heinola. But in all seriousness, Ville Heinola still has not established himself as an NHL player. Now, because we know he was going to make the team, because we know he was going to be in the top 6, and because we all saw a training camp where Ville Heinola earned his first full-time shot in the NHL, we think of him now as an NHL player. It's right to do so. It doesn't mean that Ville Heinola won't be coming back into this lineup and basically cutting his teeth as a full-time NHLer for the first time. That's not easy. What's really not easy is to walk into a team, even after time with the Manitoba Moose, Ken, where this team is playing such a near perfection, cohesive game, to walk in while everyone else has had this head start and is up to a speed that the vast majority of the NHL cannot cope with or handle, and catch them. It's like being on a space shuttle and landing on a shooting star. You know what I mean? It is, the Jets are a meteor right now, and you need to be able to jump in there. I would argue it will be almost impossible for Ville Heinola to start out with the Winnipeg Jets and be up to speed and make all the reads and do all the things that we're seeing from not just Nate Schmidt, but Dylan Samberg, but Brendan Dillon, Neil Pionk, DeMello, Morrissey, and everyone up and down the lineup. Everyone is so in sync right now. It's like trying to find harmony in a barbershop quartet without, without hearing the little thing beforehand, right?
Right.
It's tough to do. And so I've said this because I'm just thinking, like, temper your expectations for what happens with Ville Heinola when he comes into the lineup. That would be my suggestion if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan, because it won't be easy. And it may be a situation where sometimes, because we know Nate Schmidt is playing like he is, sometimes Nate Schmidt will get put in and Ville will come out, is my guess, is what we're going to see happen. And sometimes it's going to be like, okay, well, we've given him a taste here. Let's get him into practice. Let's get him working on a couple things here and bring him along slowly. It's the luxury of having a Winnipeg Jets defense that is operating the way that it is right now. But I remember at one time, Ken, we were talking about the idea of Nate Schmidt being potentially placed on waivers. I don't think either of you or I suggested that, but other people were talking about it and trying to bring it into the conversation. That's not happening. This team is going to want depth for the playoffs, and that's how you do it, is by keeping a guy like Nate Schmidt around, who is right now analytically on one of the best, if not the best, shutdown pairings in the NHL right now. But Ville Heinola is the task. It sounds not like a tough task. Oh, you just get to go and play with this really good team. To be a really good team, you need to be playing at a stupid elite level. The Jets are at a stupid elite level right now. To catch that and fit in, I think, is going to take some time and some coaching and some in and out of the lineup and a lot of work and practice to get them there.
Yeah, and a quick one. I mean, Kelly Moore, when I was on with him, his theory is that, when I asked Rick Bowness about the Moose, and all he said was that we'll cross that bridge when we get there, and it's a possibility. He thinks that because Ville's had to work so hard in his rehab, they don't, like, the carrot is the Jets, but there's almost no chance that he can't spend time. And I'm not talking 1 week, one game. It has to be multiple weeks, Sean, to get back up to speed and conditioning first and foremost, then seeing how the ankle is going to hold up to playing, 3 games in 4 nights or whatever it is. And that's where you could see some in and out and revolving door in that 6th spot. But I don't think the Jets are going to, shoehorn Ville Heinola in until he's back up to speed. They want to put him in a position to succeed. And until they can do that, he has to spend some time with the Moose before he's given that opportunity. That's my opinion.
All right, Ken, I'm just in the stage where I'm just accepting. Craig Zamzow had said it earlier on. He said it's going to be a 2-hour show. I don't know about that, but we're going long today because we haven't even bought or sold yet. Do you want to get into that? Do you want to buy or sell?
We should get into Lou here quickly. Yeah,
okay, well, give Sweet Lou a shout out.
Yeah, right on. For folks who have realty needs they'd like to have met, let's get in touch with our main man, Lou Furlan at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@loufurlan.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Furlan, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast, for which we are very grateful.
Can you buying or selling?
You go first, and then I'll go.
Oh, you want me to go first? I am buying beyond the idea of Gabe Vilardi, Mark Scheifele, and Nick Ehlers being just like a line that came together and at the right place, right time, and worked.
Sure.
There's just too much about them that works well. There's too much about them that fits well. There's too much about them that they play off each other in a way that, like, to me, it's the simplicity of Gabe Vilardi just always getting to the front of the net. It's the idea of what I'm seeing about his hands in front of the net and his capabilities there. It's Nikolai Ehlers being able to find him. It's them on the rush, Ken. It's them set up in the zone and grinding. And I loved this comment by Josh Morrissey. This, I don't know why, Ken, this may be one of my all-time favorite quotes that's not like goofing or jokey around that I've heard in the Jets dressing room. But the idea that Josh Morrissey, when I asked him about the first line and kind of their dominance lately, how he kind of pulled out the idea that, listen, the power play is struggling. And we all know the power play is a place where a lot of times offensive players go to find their confidence. They can't get their 5-on-5 game going, so they get on the power play, they score a couple goals, build their confidence, and now they get it going everywhere else. Josh Morrissey pointed out the reverse, the idea that the power play hasn't been going well, and that line hasn't allowed that to drag it down. Like, they're not losing confidence. They go out and lay an egg, sometimes on the power play, and then they turn around and get out 5-on-5 and just absolutely just grind the other team. It's almost at the stage where, you're out there and the other team gets a penalty, and Scheif and Vilardi and Ehlers are like, no, we're good. Just send the extra guy out. We'll mop you up then, is the way that they're playing. But I'm a believer in this line from the very foundation of why it's working. Sometimes guys just work together. I'm not saying that this line's not going to go through slumps. Every line's going to go through slumps. I'm a buyer that this structurally is a line that works because of the very fabric of who Mark Scheifele is, the very fabric of who Nick Ehlers is, and the very fabric of who Gabe Vilardi is.
Yeah, right on. I'm going to buy, this isn't even a hot take. I'm buying Nino Niederreiter's 8th 20-goal season. I mean, he hit his 10th tonight. He became the 5th Jets player, Sean. We've talked about depth all year long. In Game 32, the Jets have 5 players in double digits in goals. That's pretty impressive stuff, and they have a couple guys sniffing around, getting close to 10. So that number is going to be pretty high when you get to double-digit goal scoring, and that is, that's impressive. Just a quick one here on that last tweet. I mean, power play is no bueno. The Jets had 2 power play goals tonight.
Yeah,
for the first time in
second
forever.
line, the second. Power
So what?
play.
They got 2 power play goals. Who cares who got them?
Well, I think they're saying that because of the conversation about Josh and talking about that top unit and them not scoring, but still managing to score outside the 5-on-5.
Sure.
I'm just saying that's where I think that comment comes.
Jets were 2 for 3, and I mean, Rick Bowness said they deserve to be back out there, but I mean, I also think part of it was almost like you don't want to be seen as running up the score when there's a power play in the last 2 minutes. So I think that was, I mean, he didn't say it, but I think that was actually part of it too. So, I mean, of course it needs to improve. Power play is one of the most important things they got to get going, but that's a pretty low area of concern when you consider how well those guys are going. But Nino Niederreiter, I'm buying for another 20-plus goal season here after getting up to 10.
Sorry, I was just sucked into Craig Zamzow saying Billy would be in the lineup if Lou Furlan was his defense partner.
Smart call.
Stuff. Okay, let's get into it. Well, here, Ken, you know what else I'm buying?
Deep, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, a couple things. I'm gonna do 3 buys today.
There
I'm
you go.
buying the idea that this game against the Boston Bruins is the game that has woke up the rest of the NHL to actually looking at the, Biz was in on it and talking about that. I don't know.
Nick Kypreos was in earlier in the week. They had Kevin Chevalier off on.
Nick Kypreos
Nick's been paying attention.
He gets it. No, Nick is always paying attention. He's always in on this kind of stuff. But I'm absolutely buying the idea that it took them beating the Boston Bruins like this, but the rest of the league now is absolutely bought in on this. And I was gonna buy something else, and now I forgot what it was. So let's move on. If I come back to it later, I'll come back to it later. Yeah. Okay. Your Johnston group got you covered. Play of the game, Ken.
Sure. I mean, there's a few things here that stood out, but I'm going to kind of go off the board here, not sort of the same way we normally go, but I'm going to use the Mark Scheifele hit on Brad Marchand as the Johnston group got you covered because, although Brad Marchand was great this morning as a quote, he was a quote machine. He gave me a great quote about Strathclair product, Morgan Geekie, fun guy to listen to, but almost everybody in the NHL, Brad Marchand has gotten under his skin. So I think that the fact that Mark Scheifele lined him up and hit him with a solid body check, I'm gonna use that as the Johnston group got you covered play of the game because he kind of did something that probably every fan of hockey and many players around the NHL would love to get Brad Marchand lined up for a check, and he was able to actually do it in a game.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Brad Marchand, there was one point where Scheifele was skating by him, and Brad Marchand did the little fake over, like he was going to take his knee out. And I just thought, it's funny. He never did it, and he never intended to do it, but he wanted Scheifele to think for a second that he was going to do it. It's just one of those little things that's like psychological warfare out there. You could see it didn't quite get there. There was a little bit of it, but I'm going to, hey, you know what else I'm buying, Ken? I'm buying the idea that for our next show, when the Jets are in Boston, you're going to be there in Boston, that game is going to have way more of an edge to it, and the Boston Bruins are going to be a lot nastier because I saw that little bit in them from their goaltender right on out, and I don't think they're going to go as gently into the good night next time. Anyways, that's your Johnston Group got you covered play of the game. Do you run a small business in Canada? Well, look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. Visit chamberplan.ca to learn more, and thank you to the Johnston Group, the Kenny and Renny OGs. I remembered what I was going to say, Ken.
Good job.
I put out a tweet earlier on today. I'm not sure if you felt this way. You've heard this theory from me before.
Yep.
We should get that. This is back to the old days of the Renny putting the tinfoil hat on and giving you my out there theories.
Should I get the thought bubble ready? We should get a thought bubble ready here.
That's actually a good idea.
It is a good idea. That's why I said it, buddy. That's why I said it.
Now I forgot what I was going to say again, Ken. No, I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. Go back to 2018, that series. I remember it because my kids were in the audience. I sent them to that game, Game 2, Winnipeg Jets, conference final 2018 against the Vegas Golden Knights. They just beat Vegas the night before, or excuse me, the game before. It had 3 goals in the first 10 minutes of the game. Ken, I believe they won 4-1 or something like that. Everyone thought the Jets were walking. Everyone thought the Jets were walking through that series. Game 2, Vegas turns the table, win Game 3 and 4, come back in, win Game 5. I thought at that time, you've heard me say this time and again, I think that the Vegas Golden Knights broke Canada Life Center at that time. The crowd has never been the same. There's always been this apprehension or almost this feeling of impending doom. I think that's why there would always be these scenarios where the Jets would be up in a game and the place, rather than being like Rick roaring, would be quiet, like they were almost expecting the Jets to fail, like they were going to fall apart. And so what I always felt was this apprehension from the building where they couldn't celebrate because there was this sense of, we can't have nice things, right?
Right.
That team, the Vegas Golden Knights 2018, I contend, I've been saying it for years, I still believe it, broke the Winnipeg Jets crowd. Tonight, I truly feel, Ken, even the whiteout last year, I was in the middle of it. It was loud, it was crazy, it was boisterous. But if you remember those games against Vegas last year, Ken, when things weren't going well, that building got really, really quiet. Tonight, was a team that, or sorry, an audience that just, to me, was just so free and kind of just allowed themselves to just enjoy the way this Winnipeg Jets team is playing and be damned to what could possibly go wrong. Let's just take a look at what is going right here and how this team plays, and the expectation that this team is playing so good and so properly that we can expect that things go right. This, to me, felt like that unstoppable Winnipeg Jets crowd that existed from 2011 all the way to 2018. The crowd that sports writers would come into town and say, game be damned, I'm writing about the Winnipeg Jets crowd and their arena. Tonight felt like that to me for the first time since that game 1 of the conference final when the Winnipeg Jets beat the Vegas Golden Knights 4-1. And I am buying on the idea that the Jets, if they continue to play like this, the Winnipeg Jets crowd can get back there.
Yeah, I mean, this was the biggest crowd of the year, Sean. 14,405 at Canada Life Center. We know there were plenty of Bruins jerseys in the crowd, but I agree, the crowd was into it. They were channeling their early years, Swayman, the goalie chants. You don't hear very often anymore. They were into it. They were getting on Swayman. I thought that was certainly interesting game. We know what the rumor mill was suggesting, about when the Jets and the Jets and Bruins were linked together. If Connor Hellebuyck had been moved to the New Jersey Devils, Jeremy Swayman might be the goalie of the Winnipeg Jets. So much like the chance for Laurent Brossoit in that Vegas series last year, there was an interesting sidebar with the Swayman chant. Anyway, I would my only counter. I thought that the crowd was really into it in the Saturday game against the Avalanche, Sean. Maybe not quite to the same level as today. It wasn't quite as full, but I thought they were into it on Saturday for sure. But I definitely think that the crowd has been kind of more into it, and I think they're kind of starting to make believers out of. I'm not even saying make believers out of people. I just think that they're becoming a more likable team, and I think that more people want to get on board with a team that's winning and playing a fun style of hockey. And I think that people are going to start maybe dropping a few more dollar bills and making their way to the arena to see what this Jets team is like in person. Everyone can see them on TV, but the games live are a little different. And hey, it's a fun atmosphere when people are into it, right? I mean, that's the other part of, chants and whatever else. So,
you're catching me off guard tonight.
Sorry, buddy.
Because you keep saying so like you're going to continue on another point and then you end it. See?
Sorry about that.
Dead air.
It's not the same as tonight. It's not TV. It's YouTube, buddy. It's just 1 second, one deep breath.
I'd like to give you a break because it's 12:15 in the morning, but and it's because it's Christmas. Maybe Ken left early. Maybe Ken, the mind is already having some eggnog by the fire in behind him right now. So I'll give him a break.
It's the tree, not the fire, buddy. Come on.
No doubt. Well, hey, who knows what's around there? You could be in a ski lodge for all I know.
Oh yeah.
That's the kind of lifestyle that Ken Weeb. That's the kind of lifestyle imagined for Ken Weeb, or at least the kind of lifestyle that you deserve. Good buddy. Got to say that. Hey, let's get to the keg save of the game.
Yeah, really good save. A couple obvious ones. One I thought was actually a pretty scary moment for the Jets, quite frankly, when John Beecher went in on that breakaway and kind of just yard sailed into Connor Hellebuyck. I thought that was something where they went knee on knee, and I was like, what is Beecher doing here? I mean, Axel Jonsson-Fjällby played him hard, but in that scenario, he kind of ran him right into Hellebuyck, which is a very dangerous situation. But I think the save of the game was on Morgan Geekie. There was a mad scramble in front, tip, and he had 2 rebounds, I believe. Great pad save for Shirley on the second one. I think the first one as well. One of many solid saves by Connor Hellebuyck, who was not overworked, but was very good when called upon.
Okay. Well, I'm not gonna go with there. This is another game where, and it's funny. I had this conversation. There's a good story I get to tell in the future, so I'm not gonna give it away. But I had a really good conversation with Connor Hellebuyck that was born on this podcast, and the conversation that we had, I think it was last show, the show before that, Ken, about how I needed to alter what I thought
right.
was success for Connor Hellebuck, because for so many years, success for Connor Hellebuck was bailing out a team that looked disinterested in playing some nights and single-handedly winning games. And because he doesn't have to do that anymore, for me, it was hard to see the idea of the success that he was having now, because it felt like he wasn't being given the opportunity to show what he could do. A little bit of an interesting one here, Ken. He kind of had to go through the same process. He had to go through, and it'll be a story I'll tell with a little bit more detail. But what I'm looking at and watching here, he's seeing and feeling the same thing. Now, he says, my game always felt like it was good. You know, things were different at the beginning. And I can't get too much into this because you're going to have to watch Future Hockey Night in Canada's. But he saw a little bit of that and maybe had to kind of redefine what he thought was success as well, because success for Connor Hellebuck, and you saw it tonight, Ken, Laurent Brossoit had to be far more sharp and far more outstanding in their game against the Detroit Red Wings than Connor Hellebuck had to be here tonight. Because I mean, God, at one point the Jets had only allowed 2 shots in, like, from halfway through the second till almost 8 minutes in the third or something like that. Like, he literally, the Jets just stopped letting the Boston Bruins take shots, right? It's hard to be a stand on your head goaltender when there's no pucks to stand on your head for. Anyways, totally switching gears. I'm not even going to segue it. The Wave, Ken. What do you think of the Wave?
Oh, we got to give away the keg.
We will, but
sorry.
okay, yeah, let's do that then.
Sorry,
let's hand it out. Ken gave us his keg save of the game. You should do the same. If you do, you're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate to any of the 3 locations of the keg in the city of Winnipeg, each location finer than the last. And the winner from the last show is probably, yes, the biggest wrestling fan on our show. He knows who he is. Jeff Kabilis, my man, you won the keg Jeff. $50 gift certificate. I see you in the show here. I see you scrumming it up like you always are in the chat room. Take a little break from scrumming it up and send Renny a direct message to SN Sean Reynolds, full name and your email, and I will send you your very own $50 gift certificate to be used at any of the 3 keg locations in the city, each location finer than the last. Congrats, Jeff Kabili. Another guy, Ken, we're on a real heater here. Right? If there wasn't a reason for you to go to the next K&R live podcast, the fact that we're on this crazy heater of people who were at that show winning the TCB lamplighter or the keg save of the game, I don't know what else there is out there. Go there. You're probably going to win this kind of stuff. It'll pay off. Don't worry about it. Ken, before we get to the lamplighter, because I don't know if I at this stage, it's like I'm Frank the Tank. I just woke up. What happened? I don't know if I had a whole bunch of rum and eggnog before this show. My performance would suggest I did. I don't remember doing it. But the Wave, I want to know what your thoughts on the Wave are.
The Wave is irrelevant to the outcome. I'm sorry, I'm not buying. I'm selling on people thinking that the Wave is what cost the Jets a shutout. I'm sorry to say. I'm not a huge fan of it per se. When I was a teenager going to Jets games, I thought it was pretty fun. So I understand it's normally the kids that are getting the Wave rolling. So I'm not here to, be the fun police and say don't do it. But I'm also quickly here to say people, take a deep breath. The Wave is not why the Jets did not get a shutout. The reason the Jets did not get a shutout is because they were unable to make it clear along the boards. And did you get a definitive look? Did it hit Brendan Dillon's stick, or was it just a screen?
I did.
I'm not sure. Either way, I'm sure they were a little bit disappointed, but it's not relevant. And so to me, I don't know. To me, the Wave is a nothing burger. That's my personal view. Sorry.
I'm going to tell you.
Do you feel differently, or do you feel differently?
No, not at all. I'm going to tell you one of the biggest, since Jeff Kabilis won and we're on a wrestling theme, one of the biggest baby faces in the city of Winnipeg, if not the biggest baby face in Winnipeg, is our main man Hustler, who is taken on the Wave, hates the Wave, blamed the Wave for the shutout tonight. And since he's the baby face, that makes me the heel. So I'm going all in on Hustler. I'm calling him out on K&R, WST.
We know he's listening. We know he's listening.
Of course he is. But what do you got to be like that for, man? Why are you calling out the fans? I'm talking about that atmosphere tonight was so much fun. And when the Wave started out, the just not even the visual
got loud
of it,
in there again,
but how loud it was and how people were having a good time. If the Winnipeg Jets lost a shutout because people were up yelling, screaming, and having the time of their lives, so be it. If you're a professional athlete and the fact that your fans are enjoying themselves and you're going to let it affect your outcome, do better. Be better professional athletes. And it sounds like I'm calling out the athletes. I'm not, because I'm like you. I think it has absolutely no effect or outcome of the game. I know I always say in this space, I don't tell fans how to fan, and I think it's Kenny's water bottle who always says, "You tell the fans how to fan every single time." I don't know. If maybe me telling them that I don't tell them how to do that is telling them to do it. I don't get it. I don't get his circular logic.
Well, it'd be like saying if you or I tweeted shutout and then they did, like, come on, who cares? That has nothing to do with the outcome of games, people.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Ken, I had tweeted,
Let's go.
There was like 2 minutes left in the second period and the Jets had scored 3 goals, and I'd said, hey, no big deal for the Bruins. They just have 22 minutes to do what no team in the NHL has been able to do in the last quarter of the season, and that's score 4 goals to win this game, right? And instantly people were all over me saying that I jinxed it, and I hope I didn't ruin their night, those tender souls. Okay. But I love that wave tonight. The wave can be a little tiresome, and if it's done just for the sake of doing it, but if you are a crowd that was having the time that you were having tonight, and that is one of the things you do to get out of your seat, to scream, to sing, the crowd was singing along, like, let it fly, do your thing. I can tell you right now, of the 14,000, however many people, if there was 14,441 people in that building, I can guarantee you at least 14,440 had the time of their lives tonight. Get at it, people. Tons of fun. Okay, TCB, yeah, Hustler, I think we're going to be okay. I probably didn't need to hit him with the steel chair like I just did there. I hear he's got a little show
shot, buddy. That was.
I hear he's got a little show that he could, kind of fire back at. But you know what? I pick my spots. I do it at Friday,
just right going into the holiday break,
before Christmas,
12:21
and maybe he'll have forgotten about it, or he'll have got enough gifts that he'll be over it by that point. Anyways, TCB Lamplighter of the game. What do you got, Kenny?
You know what? It's again, it's one of those games where you could choose any of the 5, quite frankly. I'm going to choose the Josh Morrissey goal just because of everything that kind of happened. Morrissey has a disallowed goal. The Jets have had a great period, but they get a goal with 7.8 seconds left. Morrissey goes nuts. He's kind of, gets emotional, has a great celebration. Yeah, I mean, were there prettier goals in the game? Sure. But it was a nice goal, nice play all around, and it kind of got the Jets going, and they basically took it to the Bruins from there. So although I honorable mention to the power play goals because the power play really needed to get going, I'm going with the Morrissey goal as my lamplighter personally. In terms of skill, the Velarde goal is outstanding. The Lowry goal is great because it's all net drive, but to me it's got to be the Morrissey goal for today.
Love this one from Maurice Et, who says Huss was yelling at kids to stop the wave. Good stuff. Wouldn't that be a funny scene? I agree. I liked Velarde in tight on the net. Yeah. Again, the hands thing was outstanding. But you nailed it. Josh Morrissey came out in that first period, and Josh Morrissey looked like it reminded me, Ken, of that St. Louis game where he single-handedly threw the Jets on his back and won that game last season, except this time around, kind of like in the past where Connor Hellebuck has like stolen games and the team just sat back and watched and gave him a polite golf clap at the end of the game when it was all over. It like that time last year when Josh Morrissey single-handedly put the team on his back. This year, that doesn't happen. A guy like Josh Morrissey goes out and is like, I'm going to single-handedly win this game. And the rest of the team says, not without us, you're not, which is just such a great mentality to have. But I do love that he hopped up into the play and that they caught the Bruins, because the Bruins that's another wake up. The Bruins got careless with the puck again because they thought the clock was winding down. This is another case of the Jets playing a good team, an upper echelon team. Same thing when Devon Toews turned that puck over to Axel Jonsson-Fjallby, moved it to Adam Lowry, and he scored against the Colorado Avalanche. Another really great hockey team that the Jets were more disciplined than and more focused than because they play right until the whistle, and it gets them the goal tonight that I think broke the Boston Bruins. Like, they get that goal and the game never looks the same. Until that point, Boston could have survived. If they get the first goal, maybe it changes that game. Josh Morrissey was going to make sure that didn't happen, and that's why that is my TCB Lamplighter of the game. You should share with us your Lamplighter of the game. Why? Well, if you do, you're automatically entered to win a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends at TransCanada Brewing Company. If you cannot wait for Kenny and Renny to gift you your Lamplighter Amber Ale, head on down to TransCanada Brewing Company. Good time to go now because they've got those really, really great Christmas beers. They're not going to be there long. You want to get a hold of them. The Christmas orange one is our main man, Fred, the camera guy at TSN. That's his favorite beer that they do there. So it's a seasonal thing. Hopefully he'll be able to get his hands on some of that. But yes, other thing, Ken, throw up one last time because I'm going to give a pitch for our show on January 22nd. January for the Fanuaries. It's the second K in our show of the year. We liked that last one in the big room. We want to do it again, but we need a certain amount of people to put it in the big room. So if you haven't got tickets yet, I know it feels like you've been eating and drinking too much for the holiday season. I know it feels like you're tired. Don't worry about it. Get out there. You'll be ready to do another show by the time January 22nd comes along. So Ken's going to throw in the chat room the Eventbrite link that you can go there and purchase your tickets. We are looking forward to seeing you there. And it's time now to, you got it.
Can you put it up? I can't get to the bottom here.
Okay, it's in there.
I'm behind the.
Oh, right here. Okay, sorry. I got it right there. Lamplighter winner from our last show. I don't recognize this name. I wonder if it's someone new. It may be like, because we've got other Glens like Winnipeg Jets and stuff like that. But the Lamplighter goes to Glenn Fricker. I don't recognize the name. Maybe a newbie. It was a big win. There was lots of people around. We know people like to show up for the wins, and they get a little scared to show up during the losses. But Glenn Fricker, if you're back, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Leave me your full name and your email, and I will send you a voucher for a frosty, delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale, brought to you by our friends, our great friends at TCB TransCanada Brewing Company. Ken, anything you got to say before you go?
No, just a fun stretch of hockey so far. This is a great time of the year for many, and for us especially, Sean. I'm glad we got to spend a little time. I was oversaw Frankie and the boys over at Vittorio Rossi this week. We got a great time at the Keg recently. All the sponsors were just thankful for the support, thankful for the chat room. I mean, we're still well over 530. People here at 12:26 on a Friday night, Christmas around the corner. Hope everybody has a great holiday season. Lots of fun around the corner. It's been a fun 32 games so far. It feels like the year is going by pretty quickly, and gotta say, it's shaping up to be an interesting final 50. Let's just say that.
No doubt. I've got something to say before we go. Today was the very last day. If you are an information radio listener.
Oh, Patty, yeah.
Today was the very last day for one of the people that you may have hung out with in the chat room. You're probably going to see him a little bit more because he was getting up every morning at 4 a.m. to go do information radio. But Pat Kanuga, the producer for Marcy Marcusa on the information radio show, the #1 radio show in the morning here in Winnipeg, and has been for a long time. Pat Kanuga would be one of the reasons. But Pat Kanuga, it was his last day on air. If you listened, he went out with the class that he has always conducted himself in this business. I've said the story numerous times. I won't get into details, but I am not in this industry. I'm falling off like 3 or 4 roofs a year being a roofer, Ken, if it's not for Pat Kanuga, who brought me back into this industry and kept me going. I'm going to say this. I know we live in a highly politicized world. I know that it's become popular for people to punch down on journalists and call out journalism as a profession and things like that. There are times that things happen and journalists do certain things that they more than deserve to be called out for. I'm not saying the industry is perfect, but for every story that you hear about someone doing something wrong or improper in the media, there's a guy like Pat Kanuga who works largely behind the scenes and does it in perfection for the right reasons, with ethics, doggedly, a passion for the business that was unlike anything I've seen before. I learned to love this industry by watching how much Pat Kanuga loved it. People in the city of Winnipeg have benefited from the work that he's been doing for decades, and they don't even know it, because behind the scenes, he's been making journalist after journalist after journalist in the city of Winnipeg shine. I think he was perfect at what he did, has always been. It was the greatest one of the greatest honors of my career to have worked with him. And I'll say this, a lot of people say, who are your inspirations? Who are the people? There is no bigger influence on my career than Pat Kanuga. So proud to have called him a colleague, so proud to call him a friend that I get to spend time with. And man, oh man, Pat, you shot the lights out. You should be damn proud of yourself, because you were perfect. That's it for us here before the Christmas break here. Ken, I want to say before we do go, if you appreciate the conversations happening in this space, please, please appreciate our advertisers who fight to keep the conversation going in this space for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, Pristine Roofing, Cambrian Credit Union, Sweet Lou Furlan, the Kenny and Renny OGs in the Johnston Group, the Keg, and of course, TransCanada Brewing Company. The best gift I can think of having this year, Ken, two of them. A, having the chat room that we have, 12:30 in the morning, over 500 people in here right
Tremendous.
now. 600 earlier on. The time you spend with us, you guys are awesome. The best gift we ever could have hoped for. I can tell you right now, Ken, when you and I started this thing a number of years ago, if we would have looked and saw that this is what we were a part of right now with all the people that are here, boy, oh boy, we love you guys. You are the best. And Ken, the other gift that I could not just do without is your partnership. You are the man. I love you, buddy. Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to you all out there. All the best. Take care of each other. Be good to each other. And we will see you after Christmas.